Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 7 Part 12 based on novel. So let's start. In the air, Songjun was dumbstruck as he stared at Lindong, who gave a brilliant smile in response. Songjun's entire body was filled with a chilly sensation. His finger trembled as he pointed at Lindong while an intense astonishment surged through his eyes. You actually devoured my swallowing power. Songjun finally completed his sentence after a long time. His voice contained an unconcealable astonishment. He could not believe that not only did his mythical beast's swallowing power not do any damage to Lindong, but it was instead completely devoured by Lindong. The swallowing power was known to be able to swallow any living things in this world. Anything that fell within it would be digested. However, not only did it fail to digest Lindong, it was instead devoured by Lindong through some unknown method. Songjun was absolutely dumbstruck by this scene. Numerous gasps broke out in the surrounding area. The onlookers stared at Lindong as if they had seen a ghost. The swallowing power of the vicious Daotai might be strong, but the inheritance that you obtained is nothing compared to the genuine article. Therefore, it's not difficult to overcome it. Lindong laughed mockingly as numerous shocking gazes focused on him. He then continued, I'm afraid the Daotai sect's inheritance will lose 30% of its power after losing the swallowing power. From Songjun's perspective, the loss of the swallowing power was akin to him cutting off one of his limbs, and it could be said that he had brought this upon himself. If he kept to his plan of using his martial art for offense, it would take Lindong quite a while to defeat him. However, in the end, he chose to show off the swallowing power that he obtained from the Daotai sect in hopes of finishing Lindong off in one go. If Lindong was any ordinary individual, he would be digested into nothingness after falling into the stomach of darkness. However, he possessed the devouring ancestral symbol. As such, he did not find the Daotai beast's swallowing power to be as frightening as everyone else imagined it to be. Therefore, when Lindong fell into the stomach of darkness, he immediately activated the devouring ancestral symbol and devouring power spread outwards. Eventually, the stomach of darkness and the swallowing power that filled it were completely devoured. In the battle between these two unique powers, devouring power had completely gained the upper hand. Hence, not only did Lindong easily counter Songjun's killer move, he was also able to cause the latter to lose his most powerful weapon, swallowing power. Bastard, return me my swallowing power. The rigid smile on Songjun's face looked extremely comical. After a moment, his face suddenly turned distorted and malevolent. With a roar, his body charged forward. Several shadows appeared in the air. Following which, a powerful trident force materialized into a sky of shadows that engulfed Lindong like a torrential rain. Daotai Devil Trident. As the shadows descended from the sky, they gathered together at a terrifying speed, transforming into a black flash. Accompanied by a horrifying energy wave, the black flash violently thrust towards Lindong's skull. As the black flash flickered, there seemed to be an ancient roar emerging from within. However, Lindong merely sneered upon seeing such a violent and raging attack from Songjun. With no indications of dodging the attack, the Yuan power in his body surged frantically. With a jerk of his arm, his bone spear flew. The flying bone spear did not have a spectacular flying trajectory. However, the boundless Yuan power that it carried was so solid it was almost real and filled with an astonishing destructive power. Tick. When the bone spear made contact with the trident, a crisp metallic sound was heard. Following which, a brutal gale swept out from the point of contact, creating violent ripples through the air. Without swallowing power, the Daotai sect's martial art seems to be rather weak. A smirk flashed across Lindong's face. He could sense that Songjun's offense had lost a part of its soul. Even though his offense appeared vigorous like before, it was no longer hard to deal with. Songjun's face was twisted. He brandished the trident wildly as a terrifying gale blasted towards Lindong. It looked as if Songjun was going to go crazy. Looks like the loss of the swallowing power had dealt a huge blow to him. Even though his attacks were brutal and ferocious, Lindong was able to stop them completely. Moreover, signs of chaos and disorder started to appear in between Songjun's attacks. Songjin is really reckless now, Lindong softly said. Her beautiful eyes focused slightly as she witnessed this scene. During a battle, a practitioner's mental state was especially important. By attacking recklessly, one would reveal his or her weaknesses, and eventually, he or she would be killed by his or her opponent. Right now, Songjin was behaving in such a way. Lindong's power is rather strange. To think that he was actually deal with the Taotier's swallowing power. Ching Feng replied with a serious look on his face. The swallowing power might be powerful, but it's not invincible. There are countless unique powers in this world. What Songjin had was merely one of these many powers. Hence, it's not surprising that his swallowing power can be countered. Of course, the tricks up Lindong's sleeves are rather powerful as well. Lindong then continued softly, after all, he's only at the 4 yuan nirvana stage. Right now, what do you think are the odds of Lindong winning the fight? Ching Feng asked. If you asked me this question at the start of this battle, I would have said he had a 40% chance of winning. However, right now, I'm afraid he has a 60% chance of winning or even higher, Lindong muttered. Ching Feng slightly nodded his head while shock flashed across his eyes. With his 4 yuan nirvana stage strength, Lindong had 60% chance of defeating a 5 yuan nirvana stage practitioner. Was this guy truly that fearsome? Furthermore, Lindong's counterparts have also gained the upper hand in the other two battlefronts. Lindong shifted her beautiful eyes and looked at Little Martin's and Little Flame's battles. Her face was especially serious when she saw Little Martin's battle. The one called Lin Jiao is extremely powerful. On the surface, he might even be stronger than Lindong. Look at Song Q. He has been completely suppressed since the start of the battle. As for the muscular Lin Yang, even though he is not having an easy time, his infernal aura makes Song Ba's limbs tremble. The Lindong trio is indeed not simple. Upon hearing these words, Ching Feng shifted his gaze and nodded his head solemnly. He no longer dared to underestimate the trio. Their strength was comparable to the Song Devils. If Lindong and his counterparts could defeat the Song Devils, that would mean they were qualified to be on an equal footing as Lindong and Ching Feng himself. Their names would definitely be on the Nirvana Golden ranking. The spear and the trident crossed swords at lightning speed while sparks flew in all directions. It was clear that Lindong and Songjin were fighting with zeal and anger. Their attacks were extremely fast and ruthless. Most of their attacks were targeted at each other's vital points. If one was to be hit by one of those attacks, a serious injury was inevitable. Another ferocious collision took place as a violent energy wave swept across the area. Enormous cracks appeared on the ground below both parties as they were knocked back by the resultant force. After both of them were knocked back, Lindong's facial expression suddenly turned ice cold. Boundless yuan power gushed out from his body and formed 5 giant ancient fingers. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. An icy glint flashed across Lindong's eyes. With a bellow, 5 giant ancient fingers quickly gathered to become an enormous ancient hand. As the enormous ancient hand appeared, a figure of nothingness appeared in this space. Lindong did not stop after he successfully formed the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. A green glow burst out from his body and charged right into the enormous hand. After the entry of the green glow, numerous huge green dragon scales grew on the enormous ancient hand. In a blink of an eye, the enormous ancient hand had become a green scaly hand. Boom! Lindong's eyes were piercing cold. Without any hesitation, he clenched his fist and the enormous ancient hand imbued with the heavenly dragon aura ripped through the air and smacked down onto Songjin. Bang bang bang. As the enormous green-scaled hand whizzed downward, the earth instantly cracked open. The onlookers who stood too close to the battle were knocked backwards as they spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. As Songjin watched the enormous incoming green-scaled hand, his facial expression became extremely grim. He could feel an intense danger from the hand. Daotai Devil Armor. A bright black glow frantically gushed out and twirled around Songjin's body. The dark glow solidified rapidly and eventually formed a black armor. A dark aura surrounded the armor which gave off waves of energy. Boom! As the devil armor was formed, the enormous green-scaled hand was already on its way down. Finally, under the numerous gazes from the onlookers, the hand ruthlessly smacked down onto Songshan. Bang! Accompanied by a huge bang, an earth-shattering dark glow erupted from the armor on Songshan's body. His body flew back from the impact in a sorry state. The dark aura quickly congregated and formed numerous dark mouths that absorbed the tremendous impact. Ha ha, even though I've lost the swallowing power, you still can't kill me. As the numerous dark mouths disappeared, Songshan's body stabilized while still several feet from the ground, before he raised his head and chuckled sinisterly. Is that so? The corners of Lindong's mouth curled up. Suddenly, he forcefully pressed both his palms onto the ground. Bang! The ground beneath Songshan suddenly weirdly split in a strange manner. Under numerous shocking gazes from the onlookers, torrential dark light erupted from the crevice and materialized into a huge mouth of darkness. Within the huge mouth, there appeared to be a black hole of unfathomable depths. Songshan's pupils shrunk when he saw the huge mouth of darkness that abruptly formed below his feet. Heaven-devouring mouth. Lindong's facial expression was ice-cold. As he clenched his fist, the mouth of darkness whizzed upwards and swallowed the petrified Songshan. Now, I will let you have a taste of my heaven-devouring mouth. As darkness filled Songshan's eyes, he heard Lindong's cold and indifferent voice. A giant mouth of darkness broke out from the ground and swallowed Songshan's body at a shocking speed, in front of numerous terrified gazes. Songshan disappeared immediately after his body was being swallowed. Only a large cluster of strange black light wiggled in midair. Meanwhile, a heart-palpitating energy faintly scattered out from within. Heaven-devouring mouth. The surroundings of the messy rocky ground were silent for a second before everyone finally recovered. Immediately, they let out a sharp scream. They had seen Songshan's powerful attack before. However, they were unable to imagine that Lindong was also able to use a similar move. How is this possible? Amidst the commotion, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. How could Lindong use this martial art that belonged to the Taozong sect? What is going on? Feng Qing, who was seated on the large rock, also had a shocked expression. His eyes locked onto that wiggling black light. Songshan's aura had disappeared immediately ever since he was swallowed. It was as though he had been swallowed into the black stomach. Lanying's pretty face was similarly filled with a stunned expression. She frowned slightly and muttered, the heaven-devouring mouth that Lindong used might be the same as the one Songshan displayed. However, its ripple is extremely obscure. It is likely because he forcefully snatched away Songshan's swallowing strength. How is it possible for Lindong to snatch Songshan's swallowing strength? Even we cannot do that. Song Qing muttered to himself. We might not be able to do it, but that does not mean that others cannot as well. Lindong is not a simple person. Lanying said. Feng Qing could no longer remain non-committal in face of these words from Lan Ying. Lindong was able to force Songshan until such an extent. This was already sufficient to prove that he was capable. If he could really defeat Songshan, there would be no more than 5 people in the entire Golden Nirvana ranking who could defeat him. In other words, the current Lindong would more or less have the qualifications to be ranked as the top 5 members of the 100 Empire War. Given his background from a low-rank empire, being able to reach such a stage would be truly quite terrifying. Bang! A miserable figure shot backwards from a battleground a short distance from the messy rocky area. After which, he forcefully stabilized its body around 5 feet in front of a large rock. A terrifying strength spread out from within his body and directly shattered the large rock behind it. A groan was also emitted from his mouth. Clearly he had suffered some injuries. Is that all you can do? A ghost-like figure appeared in the midair and looked down at the man, who had groaned and retreated below. The figure laughed faintly. His handsome face had an expression of ridicule. The person with the handsome appearance was naturally Little Martin, while that miserable person was Song Q, who was fighting with him. Since the very beginning, Little Martin had gotten the upper hand. In fact, Song Q no longer harbored any intentions of winning. Instead, he merely wanted to tie Little Martin down. Song Q clearly understood the extent of Little Martin's strength after their fight. Comparatively speaking, he knew that he was weaker than little Martin. Furthermore, the latter had various peculiar tactics and he was extremely ruthless. Therefore, it was simply impossible for him to defeat such an opponent alone. A steely green expression emerged on his face when Song Q heard little Martin ridicule. However, he could only grit his teeth and swallow his anger at this moment. Once Big Brother finishes off that brat, he will be able to free himself. At that time, both of us will join forces. Regardless of how unusual this person is, he would definitely end up dying. Song Q rubbed away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. After which, his eyes swiftly drifted towards the battleground of Lindong. When he saw Songjin being swallowed by the large black mouth, the fearsome expression on his face suddenly solidified. He looked just like a clown, appearing exceptionally comical. "Looks like there is no hope for your final life-saving straw," little Martin mocked. "That brat actually wants to trap my big brother with his strength? He must be out of his mind." Song Q spoke sternly. However, shock flashed across his eyes. This proved that he was feeling uncertain in his heart. However, little Martin was too lazy to be bothered about this. His eyes looked towards the black light. Even he felt quite surprised that Lindong was actually able to force Songjin till such a sorry extent in such a short period of time. At the same time, some of the other battlegrounds, including that of Shuiying and the others, had also sensed this commotion. After which, their faces also quickly turned much paler instantly. So powerful. Compared to the pale white faces of Shuiying's group, a wild joy and shocked expression surged up the faces of Liu Bai's group. It was a long while later before they said these two words with some difficulty. The battle between Lindong and Songjin could be said to be full of ups and downs. From the initial disadvantage, Lindong had currently firmly obtained the upper hand. Songjin, who had acted in a mighty fashion previously, had now been reduced into an extremely miserable state. With regards to the shocked gazes surrounding him, Lindong acted as though he did not see them. His eyes were staring firmly at the squirming black light in mid-air. Though others might not be aware of it, he clearly understood that the thing hidden within this black light was not some swallowing strength. Instead, it was genuine devouring strength. Lindong had only purposefully used a method similar to the swallowing strength in order not to expose the existence of his devouring ancestral symbol. Moreover, the ripples between the two were also somewhat similar. Therefore, it was easy for him to replicate the move. Bang bang. Under the focus of Lindong, the black light that wrapped around Songjin suddenly began to shake intensely. It looked as though there was something within it that was struggling wildly. Lindong's eyes remained indifferent and he did not make any unnecessary move. The wiggling of that black light became increasingly intense and the devouring strength was permeated within was wildly being emitted. Boom boom boom. Songjin, who was swallowed by it, had clearly showed some traces of going crazy. A terrifying attack erupted within the black light. One could even hear his furious roar being vaguely emitted. The expressions of quite a number of people changed slightly upon hearing Songjin's roar. That roar contained a feeling of having met with a dead end. Could it be that heaven-devouring mouth that Lindong had used was really so troublesome to the point that even Songjin was unable to escape? Some handprints were continuously surfacing on the black light. Everyone could sense the hysteria attitude of the person within it. Boom. However, it must be said that Songjin's actual strength was quite strong. Even though he had landed in this dangerous state, his wild all-out effort had caused numerous crack lines to actually be formed on this dense seemingly unbreakable black light. Those crack lines spread swiftly. Finally, they completely spread apart. At the same time, numerous light figures also erupted out from within at a lightning-like speed. They panted as they paused in the mid-air. Their expressions were pale white as their eyes became as ferocious as an evil ghost. "He has come out!" Numerous exclamations erupted from the surroundings of the messy rocky area as everyone looked at Songjin, who had broken the black light. Song Q, Shuiying, and the rest sighed in relief, appearing as though they had been relieved of a great burden. "It looks like you have really thought too much." Song Q smiled ferociously as he looked at little Martin before speaking. "Is that so?" Little Martin lifted his eyebrows. His face contained a playful smile. Song Q's heart immediately sunk when he saw this smile of the other party. At this juncture, Songjin, who had emerged from the black light, was staring viciously right at Lindong. His expression was so pernicious that words could not describe it properly. Songjin did not utter any unnecessary words as his figure directly rushed out. An incomparably ferocious palm wind slammed furiously towards the waiting Lindong from all directions. However, Lindong did not do anything in the face of this attack by Songjin. He slowly shook his head as his eyes looked at a fearsome-looking Songjin with indifference. After which, he gently raised his hand and gently collided with Songjin's palm wind. A clear sound was emitted. However, the expected shocking forceful fluctuation did not appear. Songjin's seemingly ferocious palm wind had completely scattered when it made contact with Lindong's hand. "Is there still any strength left within your body?" Lindong raised his head. He looked at the savage face that was within close proximity. It was possible for him to detect that torrent-like fear that surged out from deep within the other party's eyes. After which, he smiled slightly. The terrifying strength on his palm erupted instantly. Crack! The sound of bones cracking resounded over this chaotic rocky ground in an ear-piercing manner instantly. The sound of bones cracking sounded out in the messy rock ground. Instantly, all the chaos and noise died down, as everyone turned to look at the center of the ground. In the central area of the messy rock ground, there were two figures, one up in the air and one down below, who had just crossed blows. Songjin's body was hovering in midair as he extended his right palm. However, he was firmly stopped by Lindong's hand. The sound of bones cracking had emerged from this spot. Whose bone had been broken? This thought flashed past everyone's minds. All of them knew that the victor was probably going to emerge soon. Therefore, none of them dared to even blink their eyes. Amidst the silence, Lindong's elegant figure suddenly shifted. Promptly, an icy cold smile slowly emerged on his face. Meanwhile, there was a rich killing intent flowing within his smile. After he smiled, Lindong suddenly took a step forward. His palm was just like an eagle claw as he tightly gripped onto Songjin's wrist. Following which, with a jerk of his arm, massive force immediately uprooted Songjin forcefully. After a swirl in midair, Lindong finally slammed him viciously against a large rock in front of the crowd's bewildered eyes. Boom! A deep and heart-palpitating echo, which was produced when his body slammed against that large rock, sounded out across the arena. Immediately, that large rock exploded in bits, while gravel flew everywhere. That terrifying impact unreservedly gushed into Songjin's body. Instantly, he felt as if all the organs in his body had shifted due to that impact, as he vomited out a mouthful of fresh blood. Boom! However, just as his body landed, Lindong's cold face once again appeared in front of him. There seemed to be a coldness of unfathomable depth gushing out from his eyes. Maintaining his tight grip on Songjin's wrist, Lindong pursed his lips before he dragged Songjin and ran off. Following which, he viciously flung him at those large rocks nearby. Bang! 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 In the arena, large rocks continuously exploded. Lindong continued to grip onto Songjin and use his body like a bat. In an extremely domineering fashion, he flung Songjin against those large rocks. Everyone in the messy rock ground seemed to have slowed down. As they stared at a helpless Songjin, all of them involuntarily exhaled a breath of cold air as shock permeated their eyes. All of them were simply unable to believe that a top-tier individual who originated from one of the 10 great super empires and had obtained the inheritance of Taozong would actually lose to Lindong in such a devastating fashion. Qingfeng's throat rolled, while he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Glancing at Lindong's blood-stained hands, he turned to find a feeble Songjin only to discover an expressionless Lindong. Suddenly, for no particular reason, a coldness surged up across his entire body. This fellow is truly terrifying. Songjin has really lost. Lanying softly sighed with a complicated expression on her face. Though she could sense Songjin's feeble aura, she did not know why Songjin would suddenly lose all means of resistance. Evidently, this must be one of Lindong's peculiar tactics. Furthermore, even she felt fearful of this tactic. The instant this battle ended, Shui Ying and the rest were all in shock as they stared at this scene. Meanwhile, their pale faces turned increasingly pale. This outcome had completely exceeded everyone's expectations. After all, it was impossible for them to imagine that Songjun would actually be defeated. Furthermore, he lost so devastating to a full Yuan Nirvana stage member from a low-rank empire. Is that fellow so powerful? Fear was faintly flowing within their eyes when Shui Ying and the rest saw how Lindong casually abused Songjun's body like a weapon. His exceptional rage and violence caused their hearts to shiver. Big brother. Song Q and Song Ba were also stunned by this scene. However, they promptly recovered their senses. Immediately, rage surged into their eyes, before their figures flashed as they attempted to rescue him. I have played with you for long enough. Guess it's time to end it. Just as Song Q was about to make a move, a phantom-like figure mysteriously appeared in front of him. When he saw that smiling beautiful face, Song Q's pupils immediately shrunk. Little Martin leaned forward before he instantly closed the gap between him and Song Q's body. Following which, a palm filled with a dark purple glow faintly transformed into a black claw. With a loud swoosh, it tore through the sky. Before Song Q had the time to react, that icy-cold palm had already solidly slammed against his palm. Song Q's body solidified. In the next instant, his body instantly flew out as he vomited blood. Finally, he landed hideously on the ground and no one knew if he was still alive. Second brother. Song Ba, who had already taken a few steps forward, immediately exclaimed in shock when he saw this sight. Godly transformation, sky demonic claw. However, before Song Ba could finish his sentence, a deep tiger growl filled with a savage killing intent sounded out from behind him. Following which, a terrifying shock wind swept forth from behind and encapsulated him. When he felt that savage shock wind, Song Ba's expression drastically changed. As he quickly turned around, a resplendent golden glow quickly agglomerated. In a blink of an eye, it has transformed into a sturdy golden shield. Clang! After that golden shield materialized, a large and black tiger claw quickly arrived. Without a shred of hesitation, it carried a savage killing intent as it directly slammed against that shield. Clang! A terrifying aftershock swept forth as a black light ran amok in the sky. However, to Song Ba's bewilderment, cracks began to swiftly appear on that golden shield. As those cracks rapidly grew, in mere seconds, they had reached their limits. Finally, that golden shield exploded with a loud bang. The instant that shield exploded, Song Ba, who was standing behind it, had lost his final line of defense. As that black tiger claw swept forth, with a single swipe, his entire body was viciously flung deep into the ground. As the ground collapsed, a giant ditch appeared. Meanwhile, Song Ba was directly buried in that deep ditch. Boom! A muscular figure that seemed just like the devil landed beside the ditch. Little Flame, who was slightly wounded, wiped off the blood stains on his face. With a savage glint in his eyes, his arms stretched out before he directly pulled out an unconscious Song Ba. When the surrounding crowd saw this sight, they instantly turned silent. In mere seconds, 2 of the 3 Song Devils have been instantly defeated. Incorrect. Perhaps all 3 of them have been defeated. Immediately, all of their attention quietly shifted. Dust filled the arena, while all the large rocks nearby have been blasted apart by Lindong. Of course, the weapon he used was Songjun's physical body. Amidst the dust, a figure slowly emerged. However, his soft footsteps caused several people's heart to tremble. That man finally emerged from the dust, and that elegant figure naturally belonged to Lindong. Right now, there was a gentle smile on his face, while his hands were covered with blood. Following which, he dragged a slightly twisted figure as he slowly walked out. Anywhere he walked past, a blood trail will follow, and it was extremely eye-catching. After he emerged from the dust, Lindong swung his arm before he directly tossed that blooded figure away, just like a piece of garbage. The deep sound of that man landing in the arena seemed to have directly struck everyone's heart and caused their bodies to violently tremble. Is that really the boss of the 3 Song Devils, Songjun? In the messy rock ground, everyone stared at that bloody figure, before they turned to look at the smile on Lindong's face. Immediately, a chilling sensation arose in their hearts. That fellow was simply too vicious, and he actually beat up a 5-yuan Nirvana stage practitioner till such a horrifying state. Still up for a fight? Lindong lifted his head as he stared at Shui Ying and the rest, who had pale expressions on their faces, before he laughed and asked. Lindong's smile was fairly congenial. However, to Shui Ying and the rest, he looked just like the devil. Immediately, their faces turned deathly white. Any resistance in their hearts have been completely crushed the instant Lindong tossed out that bloody figure. If you are not going to fight, surrender your Nirvana seals. Then, scram. Shui Ying's and the rest's expressions were in flux. However, eventually their eyes dimmed down. All of them understood that this time around, they had lost completely. Lindong's group won. On top of a large rock, Lanying heaved a deep sigh of relief. Meanwhile, a peculiar glint flashed across her eyes as she softly muttered. The 3 Song Devils have actually lost. The Lindong trio will definitely ascend in the Nirvana Golden ranking and become the most dazzling individuals in the ancient battlefield. Lanying lifted her head as she stared at the 100 Empire Mountain that extended into the clouds. It is likely that even those super sects that were keenly observing this fight would be shocked by this result. This video will end here.